A diplomat, a foreign affairs and security policy expert at the Center of Defense Strategies, and the nicest personality I know. Oleksandr Khara is very much live in this very studio at UATV English. Hello, Alex.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. Well, let's start with China. You don't mind, probably.
No, I don't.
No, you know.
It's a nice country with
it
a
is.
rough regime.
Nicely put. All right, so Xi Jinping recently said, let me quote it, China will guard peace together with Moscow. Well, whatever Comrade Xi says, he says it regularly, but is that a relationship that Putin can actually rely on?
Well, first of all, let me be not a diplomat here, and I'll call it oxymoron, because it's not possible to be with Russia and aim for peace and the war, the largest conflict in Europe since 1945, with all signs of genocide and war crimes and other things. So if Beijing sides with Moscow on that, certainly he is not aiming to peace. He's aiming to aid his junior partner how to get out of this corner, I would say. Even though Russia is not losing now, but it's definitely not winning, and it's on the peak of its possibilities, and just like to generate forces and to get assistance from other friends from the international illiberal, I mean Iran, DPRK, and some other countries. And that's why just like China wants to help general partner, and it wants to help it for the aim to get better relations, or at least more stable relations with the European Union and NATO. Because now the Chinese are fearful of secondary sanctions in other actions of the United States and their European allies that are implied, or they've been imposed on China because of the support of the Russian aggression in Ukraine.
So it's like more to trade, you know, to buy the peace now than to trade with the West, whatever they can get from Russia. Is that?
Well, they're getting from Russia everything they want, political concessions, and mostly the cheap resources that Russia is trying. Just one of the examples. The Russians has been trying to sell to the Chinese the gas pipeline for at least a decade. And Chinese were refusing, and they were not interested in that for several reasons. First of all, they are a coal-dependent country. They have, I believe, 8 or 9 LNG terminals. They can buy on spot market everything they want. So there is no need to have this tube. But the Chinese were ready to accept that if Russians would finance that. And then the Chinese want to buy the Russian gas on the domestic Russian prices, which is, well, it's a crazy thing. So I believe that the Russians would go finally with this proposal because they need assistance, they need cash inflow to carry on with this war and just to substitute what they've lost in Europe.
So, Xi Jinping, China, Orban, Hungary, Fico, Slovakia, De Silva, Brazil. These people call themselves a friend of peace, whatever that means. So, and want a peace summit in friendship and maybe even love in the after party in Ibiza, I don't know, but maybe with Zelensky and Putin. Can you please comment on that? Because I'm at loss of words. Like Brazil and China and Hungary and Slovakia want to make a peace summit where they can propose a peace summit of a peace of Ukraine for Russia.
Well, yes, you're right. Putin is a peace-loving gentleman. He wants a peace of Ukraine, a peace of Moldova, a peace of Georgia, and possibly a peace of Poland as well. So, firstly, if we're talking about this particular company, Kazi company, and Brazil, when Miss Rousseff was a president back in 2014, the Brazilian government and its permanent representative to the United Nations didn't vote for territorial integrity of Ukraine. They just abstained. And this government is constantly on the side of Russia, rather the international law, and then Ukraine. It's because at that time, in 2022, there was the conservative president, Bolsonaro, that Brazil voted for the condemnation of the Russian aggression. So there is a constant position of the party that Mr.
So there's nothing
so
new.
there is nothing new. Secondly, because he's a Marxist, he sees that not Russia an empire that wants to get back Ukraine as a colony, but he sees that the United States is an empire that wants to irritate Russia somehow by pushing Ukraine and just like provoking this conflict by expanding NATO and all the rubbish like that. The Chinese are, it's clear, we've been talking about it before. So the Chinese goal is to push slightly or slowly the United States from this chair of the hegemon and take this chair. And they don't want to do it, they are not in rush. They have time before them. And Russians do not have. And this is one of the reasons that they started this overt war in 2022. And the Chinese don't want to irritate Americans. That's why they are happy that they have a junior partner that is waging this war and trying to demolish international rules-based order. And the Brazilians are supportive of Chinese approach because they are not happy with Europeans and with Americans. So they're siding with that. So they want to have a new world order. Each and every country, each and one leader wants to have its own system. The Russians want to have a tripolar world. The United States, China, and Russia is ruling the world. Chinese are thinking about bipolar world, and actually Xi Jinping, when he was meeting with Joe Biden, he proposed, he said that the world is large enough for two countries to flourish. It's actually, he proposed these spheres of influence of the United States and China. But what's interesting, after that, Joe Biden was asked by a journalist whether Xi Jinping is an authoritarian leader or something like that, and he said, yes, he is. So the reply of Mr. Biden says that he is not in mood to agree on sphere of influence. He is still supporting the value-based approach in the foreign policy.
But it seems to me more or less everyone is more or less happy with the situation. Talking about everyone wants to rule the world, you know, like this in this song. So someone is discussing it, someone is trying to get it by force. There are people are forgetting that actually Ukraine is fighting for it, for the survival. It's an existential war. So China says something, then takes it all back. Do you really believe that Putin does not understand that China is no partner in a long-term relationship? It's way too powerful, way too big, and would definitely not trade its relationship for the future for decades with West. For what in Russia?
No, he doesn't understand it because even in 1990s, Mr. Primakov, who used to be prime minister, he is a KGB guy and other things. So there is an informal Primakov doctrine which says that Russia needs to regain its control over the Soviet space. It needs to get or keep NATO in its place, not allow it to get closer to Russia, to leverage to leverage China against the United States. So at that time he knew that Russia is so weak, and it's impossible to repeat the history of the Cold War when the Soviet Union was so powerful and able to just together to control a lot of territories and channel them, to stream them against the capitalist world. So Primakov knew that it is not the case. That's why he said that we need to balance and we need to use China against the United States. And I believe that Putin thinks that it's something that he's doing. But the facts are absolutely different on the ground. China is a champion of the electronic vehicles electronic vehicle market simply because Russia, because of the sanctions, lost all those importers from Europe and the United States, and China just filled the gap of this market
immediately.
And a lot of other things are happening just because Russia, contrary to its economic interests, contrary to the interests of a lot of people in Russia, and I'm talking about ordinary people, not those around Putin, he decided to have this confrontation with the West, to have this genocidal war against Ukraine that has never provoked and has never been a threat to Russia, potential threat,
Right.
even a member of NATO, if it was a neighbor in NATO. So we are talking about irrationality, and we are talking about the, let's say, perception of other countries and the wishful thinking that Russia may manage to be in confrontation with the West, but not to fall as a junior partner or prey of stronger power.
Which Russia already is a junior partner, whatever Putin thinks about it. But let us slide to the other parts of the world. Iran and Israel. Israel methodically destroys Hezbollah, all of them, and the management. And we hear quite a damnation talk again about Israel, that Israel needs to be destroyed and everything, and the Arab world is united. But what we see, the actions, I don't see that Arab world is actually united, at least against Israel, because everyone is trying to sustain more or less about what's going on, and Israel is just doing what it has to do in terms of its own survival and flourishing the future. Am I right?
Well, yes, just before October the 7th of last year, when there was a huge and terrible terrorist attack on Israel, unprovoked attack, I would say, it seemed that at that time Middle East was quiet. And actually, it's an irony that
Exactly, yes.
Jacob Sullivan told about that. He said, it's never been such a quiet place as Middle East. And actually, many countries wanted to have a better relations with Israel. And before that, Saudi Arabia was negotiating with the United States a rapprochement between three, Israel and the United States, because Saudi Arabia wants to have the security guarantees from the United States. And even though China mediated a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran just several months before the attack. So if this attack had not happened, the Middle East could have been completely different. And many Arab nations would follow the suit with Saudi Arabia to establish better relations with Israel. But I believe it was one of the reasons why this terrorist attack happened.
Oh, that's my next question, exactly.
Iranians,
so just trigger it, yeah.
Iranians who are masterminds behind all those terrorist activities around Israel, because they have this ring of fire strategy. They implanted terrorist organizations, they trained, they financed, they support them in many ways with the aim to deter Israel from attacking Iran. But they made a mistake. They thought that Israel would not retaliate in Gaza Strip. And certainly they were not happy when the pagers started to beep in Lebanon. And a lot of Hezbollah fighters and particularly management, the key figures were just killed or wounded. And then there was a precise strike. I believe it was 8 tons of explosives that was channeled to the underground safeguard of this Hezbollah leadership. And the Israelis managed to kill the 2 consecutive leaders after that one, Nasrallah, was killed. And now the Iranians just started, I believe, irrational thing of targeting Israel directly, not via their proxies, but directly, which is something that is really...
Isn't it?
It's suicidal, yes, because we've seen that Israel is ready. Suddenly they've lost something, and particularly some platforms because of this missile attack. But they are capable of doing a lot of things, and I believe they may just undermine ability of Iran to get currency into Iran. I mean, they may destroy the refineries and ports, and actually they struck the port in Yemen.
Right.
And show that they meant business. And the same thing they can do with the nuclear program of Iran.
Just by the way.
And I'm not sure what consequences for the government, Islamic government in Iran, there would be if Israel do these things. Certainly, some people would be crazy and outraged, but we've seen that Iran is not a quiet place, and that it's a fragile state with a lot of ethnic groups, with a lot of different versions of Islam,
Right.
with a lot of people who remembers the previous times before the, let's say, theocratic regime was imposed, and certainly they want some freedom. They don't
So
want
there
to-
is a pressure. You're saying that there is a pressure to crack from inside.
Yeah, it may be because no, what Putin didn't expect actually in this war, such a reaction from Ukraine, from the West, and
That's the
actually
parallel.
and actually from the Russians themselves.
Right.
So they are, and what I'm saying, what I'm talking particularly about the Prigozhin mutiny. Nobody wanted to protect Putin when Prigozhin decided to set for Moscow with his henchmen, and he has some agenda on that.
Who are we talking about? Who could that be?
Oh yes, a National Guard is just a regular
Oh, right. You're talking
regular
about the
Russians who
domestic Russian forces.
Yeah, but
Right,
the same
right.
thing. Who is going to support the concurrent regime in Tigran? Certainly the Islamic the Guard for sure, because they're dependent on that. They're brainwashed with this ideology, and they paid very
They're
well.
paid, exactly.
Yes, but I am not sure that ordinary Iranians would rise up to support their government. So before Iranian government decides to do some stupid things against Israel, it should think first of all not about the retaliation from Israel, but about the consequences on their own ground, and all those grievances may appear, and Iran may crack. And
I wish, but I don't believe in this. I mean, it never happened before, and I don't believe that there is another way for Israel to survive just to win again, because Israel is fighting every day since the first day of the creation of the state. Israel is amidst the enemies. Let's put it straightforward.
But from the other hand, they are proceeding from the resources they have, capabilities they have, and certainly possible consequences. They were, and actually they've done something that Ukraine needs to do. They didn't take into consideration advice from their major partner and ally, the United States, because they just waited. Fears of possible escalation or the very existence of the Israeli
Well, here we
state.
go. You're reading my mind. That actually was my next question. I mean, of course, we are dependent on the West. I mean Ukraine, at some point. But if we would be asking the permission for Kursk incursion, never would happen. It would not happen. The Kharkiv victory, which was one of the major victories of this war, would never happen if we would be constantly asking the permission for survival, for winning. And now Ukrainian army is in no worse position than it was before, because there were actually no Ukrainian army at the start of the war. Now we have it. We have all sorts of problems, but we are capable of dealing with them, with West helping us. Because these fears of escalation are nothing but cowardice and rubbish, if you ask me, because you can't appease a monster. You can slap him into your at the face and show him the place where he belongs. But you cannot talk to Putin's sense. You cannot talk sense to Putin, because his sense is all of Ukraine.
Well,
and maybe a piece of Poland.
Let me disagree a bit. Putin is a rational guy, but he is playing the old rules.
Okay.
You're absolutely right that this escalation management is rubbish. It's because the Americans are playing new rules and Russia playing the Cold War rules. Deterrence is something that is just like recently Mr. Trump said, tango is something that needs two to dance. So deterrence is something, it's a readiness of at least two powers to annihilate each other in the whole world. And with this crazy idea, it creates an environment of stability. So it means that it's better not to use nuclear arms. And the Russians were able to deter the United States from helping Ukraine since 2014, because Mr. Obama did nothing to stop Putin from annexing Crimea and started war in Donbass.
Well, exactly on the contrary, you do all them to trigger that.
Oh, yes, I agree. And so then in 2022, when we were kicking off the Russians out of Kiev and other regions, and we asked for assistance from the United States, and they were hesitant. And the reason for our, let's say, we haven't achieved as much success as it was possible simply because they feared a nuclear escalation. Then the same thing in 2023. We were not provided with the air power, and without air power, it was not possible to achieve all those goals we set for ourselves. We lost a lot of people, and material, and did achieve things that we have. And then the West said that, okay, we are provided you almost everything you needed, but you failed. That's why let's talk to Putin. So what I'm saying that it's not that I'm for these talks with Putin. No, not at all. But I'm saying that Putin understands the language of strength.
Exactly.
And we are trying to do this on the Ukrainian part. And unfortunately, our partners are not helping us to do this. And they do not put bets on Ukrainian victory. They put bet on Ukraine winning something and forcing Putin to negotiate, which is an illusion, a complete illusion.
A topic for another discussion, you're absolutely right. But let me, in terms of a crack from inside, like when Iran can crack from inside and some forces of, I don't know, some sort of a democracy and freedom can break from within. Saudi Arabia is very likely to sink the prices because Riyadh is definitely frustrated by what is happening with these prices, and they can lower down the prices to like dump it like to $20, which gives about $5 for Riyadh to still have a profit, and about $50 below the very, very red line for Russia, because the production cost is about $35 in Russia. Do you think that could be the crack that can crack Putin's regime?
Well, inshallah. I believe that it's a good thing to do. Unfortunately, the Joe Biden administration failed to convey MBS to go this way a couple of years ago.
Right.
They negotiated. They wanted to have the at least gradual, let's say, gradual reduce of oil price or expansion of the output of oil production. And because of grievances and because of these strained relations with this administration, we certainly can recall Khashoggi's brutal murder in the consulate in Istanbul, and a lot of other things that Saudi Arabia has done, and particularly the Democrats are not happy with the way how Saudi has been fighting war in Yemen, with violation of human rights and other things. So all the things actually just made it almost impossible for MBS to step down from his position and to side with the United States and Europeans, even though it actually was in his interest. And as I said before, it's a pity that this terrorist attack happened before Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States come to a conclusion and agreement that it's better to have cordial relations.
Well, maybe that was the trigger.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, and I believe that in some future we will know for sure that not just Iran but Russia are behind that, and not just by providing some weapons, but providing intelligence and pushing all those terrorists to commit suicide with no reason, real reason, and actually with consequences which are much worse than it was before the attack. So nobody in Israel are talking about two-state solution. And I'm not sure that in a decade it would be a relevant topic to discuss, even though in the United States and in Europe some politicians are talking about it. But how can you talk about it after these tremendous crimes, and when the hundreds of Israeli hostages are still in Hezbollah, in Hamas hands?
You know, well, of course you can talk about these things, because when it's not your country and it's not your people that are there, and you're not responsible for them, or more or less it's not your family. So when I talk to people now, I say, I've seen the pit in the ground full of dead bodies in Bucha. I've seen it with my own eyes. And they said, it's awful, but awkward, but let's change the topic. Why would I change the topic? But see, and I suddenly understood that there is no way you can just deliver your pain and what you have seen to other people. You have to engage their interest. So maybe we can somehow influence the crack of the Putin's regime talking to Saudi Arabia. Maybe I'm dreaming, but maybe there is a way. Maybe you're a diplomat. Tell me.
Well, I think that the only way is to reach out to the Saudis. It's via Washington. There is no other way. And actually, this OPEC plus format,
OPEC plus, right.
where Russia is a part, and certainly they are interested in a certain level of the oil prices, because there is a major income of Russian budget, and the kleptocratic budget. I mean, and certainly the war. But if there is a chance to negotiate such a price decrease from the American side, it would be great assistance to Ukraine. And actually, it would be great assistance to Kamala Harris, I would say now, before the elections. I believe that many Americans would change their mind and support her on this election. I'm not, I'm not interfering in American elections, but what I'm saying that, and actually it happens each and every time during the elections, that the administration is preparing some package before the elections, just like to buy votes, and which would be a natural thing. So I would love to see that. I would love Saudi Arabia to be once again a part of the West, rather than this autocracy international, as Anne Applebaum call it. And it would be in security and economic interests of Saudi Arabia. They want to have these cordial relations with the United States, to invest in the United States, to get profit out of it, to be protected, to be allowed to buy the modern American weapons. They cannot buy it anywhere. They cannot buy from Russia this crap from Russia, or China is not going to sell them, and certainly they are not the best. So the United States is the indispensable partner in terms of security. Even though the United States, beginning from Obama administration, decided to pivot to Asia, so they wanted to shift from the Middle East. But the events in Ukraine and in the Middle East now show that it's not possible to just to get the United States out without all those global troubles and ripple effect felt across the globe. So the United States will be present in the Middle East. And it's better to have a partnership beyond Israel, beyond possibly Egypt, which is, knows what side is the best. Certainly they criticize Israel, but they are not ready to attack.
And as I said, just not acting or criticizing all you want.
No, and there is a reason for criticizing. Certainly, there is there are acts of Israel that worth condemning, but we should look at it in the general context. And certainly, Israel did not provoke this terrorist attack. And I believe it was right to go after Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis now, and possibly even strike in Iran, even though it may spill this conflict out of the region, and some countries will be involved. And actually, China would be involved, because China is dependent on oil. Their economy is growing, it's not on double digits, so they need income for their, let's say, for their citizens, and with this they need stable global economy, and the stable global economy is not possible without pretty good prices on oil. So they will be involved as well.
Stable global economy sounds so good, so I can't help myself but to finish this lovely conversation, to thank you so very much for the hope and for your expertise, and hope to see you very soon in this studio.
Thank you for having me, for sure.
You're welcome. A diplomat, a foreign affairs and security policy expert, and Center for Defense Strategies, Oleksandr Khara, was in this very studio. Believe it or not. That was UATV English and me, Henry Keane. Thank you so very much.